Charlie Chaplin Story, Part 1, Introduction plus Childhood. Hello friends, and welcome to today's story. In this video, we are going to travel back in time, to the early years of cinema, where one man, with a small mustache, a bowler hat, and a cane, made the whole world laugh, and sometimes cry. His story is not just about comedy. It is about poverty and success, struggles and triumphs, loneliness and love. It is the story of a man who became the most famous comedian in the world, but who never forgot the pain of his childhood. Today, let us begin this journey, step by step. Chapter 1, The Beginning. Charles Spencer Chaplin was born on 16th of April 1889, in London, England. His parents were both stage performers, but life was never easy. His father, Charles Chaplin Sr., was a singer, but he struggled with alcoholism. His mother, Hannah Chaplin, was a singer and actress, but her health was weak. The Chaplin family lived in deep poverty. Sometimes, they did not even have enough food to eat. Little Charlie and his brother Sidney grew up in a world of hardship. At the age of just 5 years old, something happened that would change Charlie's life forever. One evening, his mother was performing on stage. Suddenly, her voice broke. She could not sing. The audience began to laugh and shout. The little boy, Charlie, was standing in the wings of the theater. To save his mother from humiliation, he went onto the stage and began to sing. The audience was surprised. They laughed. They clapped. The boy with shining eyes and natural charm had stolen the show. This was Charlie's first performance, and perhaps the first step toward his destiny. Chapter 2, Childhood Struggles. But life outside the stage was very hard. Charlie's father abandoned the family. His mother became very ill and could not take care of her children. When Charlie was just 7 years old, he and his brother were sent to a workhouse for poor children. It was a place of hunger, cold, and strict rules. Imagine a little boy, with no shoes, standing in long lines for bread. That was Charlie's reality. Later, he said that these difficult times taught him the value of laughter, because laughter was the only medicine that made life bearable. Chapter 3, The First Steps in Theater. By the age of 10, Charlie started performing with small theater groups. He was naturally talented in mimicry, dancing, and comedy. He could make people laugh just by the way he walked. At the age of 17, he joined a theater company and began touring around England. One of his most successful roles was as a drunk man in a comedy sketch. Audiences loved his timing and his funny movements, but Charlie wanted more. He wanted to explore the world. And soon, fate would give him that chance. Chapter 4, Journey to America. In 1910, at the age of 21, Charlie Chaplin traveled to America with a theater company. For the first time, he saw the land of opportunities, where the film industry was beginning to grow. In those days, movies were silent, black and white, and often very short. Charlie's unique acting caught the attention of filmmakers. In 1913, he signed a contract with Keystone Studios, one of the most famous comedy film companies. It was here that Charlie created his most iconic character, the Tramp. The Tramp was a poor man, with a bowler hat, a small mustache, a cane, and shoes too big for his feet. He walked in a funny way, with pride, but also with innocence. People all over the world fell in love with him. Because in the Tramp, they saw themselves, struggling, falling, but always standing up again with hope. This was just the beginning of Charlie Chaplin's rise to fame. In the next part, we will see how he became the biggest star of Hollywood, and how his films changed the history of cinema forever. Part 2, Rise to Hollywood and Global Fame. Chapter 5, Birth of the Tramp. In the year 1914, Charlie Chaplin appeared in his first short films with Keystone Studios. At first, he played small characters, but he wanted to create something special. So one day, he dressed himself in a very unusual way, a small mustache painted on his face, a bowler hat on his head, a tight coat, and baggy trousers. shoes that were too big, and, of course, a small cane in his hand. When he walked onto the set in this outfit, the directors laughed. But when the camera started rolling, something magical happened. The character the Tramp was born. The Tramp was poor, but proud. He was funny, but also kind. He would fight bullies, but always protect the weak. He was, in short, a mirror of society. Audiences loved him immediately. Chapter 6. Hollywood Stardom. By 1915, Chaplin was not just an actor. He was a star. Posters with his face were everywhere. Children copied his funny walk. People in Europe, America, and Asia all knew the little tramp with the mustache. His films, like The Tramp, 1915, and The Bank, 1915, were huge successes. Audiences laughed, but also felt touched by the emotional moments. Charlie had found his style, comedy with heart. Chapter 7. Becoming a filmmaker. Soon, Chaplin wanted more control over his work. He was not satisfied with just acting. He wanted to write, direct, and even produce his own films. In 1916, he signed with Mutual Film Corporation, earning one of the highest salaries in the world at that time. Imagine, a boy who once stood in a poorhouse line for bread was now earning thousands of dollars every week. His films during this time included classics like The Ring, 1916, and Easy Street, 1917. These films combined slapstick comedy with deep human emotion. Chapter 8. United Artists. His own studio. But Chaplin's ambition did not stop there. In 1919, along with three other legends, Douglas Fairbanks, Mary Pickford, and D.W. Griffith, he founded his own company, United Artists. This gave him complete creative freedom. Now he could make films exactly the way he wanted, without interference from producers. And soon, he created masterpieces like The Kid, 1921. Chapter 9. The Kid, a masterpiece. The Kid was Chaplin's first full-length film. It told the story of a poor man who adopts an abandoned child. The child was played by young Jackie Coogan. The film made audiences laugh, but also cry. It was about poverty, love, and the bond between a parent and a child. Chaplin himself said, "A film with a smile, and perhaps a tear." With The Kid, Chaplin proved that comedy could also be art. Chapter 10. Worldwide fame. By the 1920s, Chaplin was the most famous man in the world. In Paris, in Tokyo, in Bombay, in New York, wherever people went to the cinema, they saw the little tramp. He became more than just a comedian. He was a symbol of hope, especially for poor and struggling people. Even kings and queens admired him, but Chaplin never forgot his roots. He often said, "My pain may be the reason for somebody's laugh, but my laugh must never be the reason for somebody's pain." Charlie Chaplin had risen from poverty to glory. From the workhouse of London to the studios of Hollywood, his journey was unbelievable. But his story was far from over. The next chapter would bring him even greater films, but also new challenges. In the next part, we will see Chaplin's golden years, how he made classics like City Lights and Modern Times, and how he remained the king of comedy even in a changing world. Part 3. Golden Era. Masterpieces and Messages. Chapter 11. The Art of Silent Comedy. In the 1920s, the film industry was changing. The invention of sound, known as the talkies, had arrived. Audiences were excited to hear actors speak. But Chaplin was not sure. He believed that comedy was a universal language, understood by everyone, no matter which country they belonged to. And for him, silence was more powerful than words. So, even as the world moved to sound films, Chaplin continued to make silent films. And these silent films became masterpieces. Chapter 12. City Lights. 1931. In 1931, Chaplin released one of his greatest films, City Lights. The story was simple, but deeply moving. The tramp falls in love with a blind flower girl. She believes he is a rich man, but in reality, he is poor. To help her, He tries everything, even boxing, to raise money for her operation. The final scene of City Lights is considered one of the most emotional moments in film history. The blind girl, now able to see, realizes that her benefactor is not a rich man, but the poor tramp. Her smile, and his shy expression, touched millions of hearts. Albert Einstein himself attended the premiere of City Lights. When the lights went down, even the greatest scientist in the world wiped away tears. Chaplin had once again proved that comedy could also carry deep human emotion. Chapter 13, Modern Times, 1936. The world of the 1930s was full of change. Factories, machines, and the Great Depression shaped people's lives. In 1936, Chaplin made Modern Times. In this film, the tramp struggles with machines, factories, and the challenges of industrial life. The famous scene of Chaplin caught inside giant gears, turning like a part of the machine, became iconic. But Modern Times was not just comedy. It was a commentary on society. It showed how ordinary people were being crushed under modern industry. And at the end, even though everything was difficult, the tramp tells his companion, "Smile. We'll get by." It was a message of hope in a time of despair. Chapter 14, The Great Dictator, 1940. By the late 1930s, the world was facing another great crisis, the rise of fascism, especially in Germany under Adolf Hitler. Chaplin took a bold step. In 1940, he released The Great Dictator. It was his first true sound film. In it, he played two roles: a poor Jewish barber, and a dictator named Adenoid Hinkel, a parody of Hitler. The film was both hilarious and powerful. It mocked the cruelty of dictators, and at the same time, gave a voice to humanity. At the end of the film, Chaplin delivers a famous speech, a call for peace, kindness, and unity. He says, "We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery." This speech became one of the most powerful moments in cinema history. At a time when the world was heading into war, Chaplin used his art to speak for peace. Chapter 15, The Peak of His Career. By the early 1940s, Chaplin was at the peak of his career. He was not just a comedian. He was an artist, a director, a writer, a musician, and above all, a voice of the common man. From City Lights to Modern Times to The Great Dictator, Chaplin had given the world laughter, tears, and hope. But fame also brings challenges. And soon, Chaplin would face storms in his personal and professional life. Charlie Chaplin had conquered the world with his art. But now, he was about to face criticism, controversy, and exile. In the next part, we will see Chaplin's struggles in America, his political troubles, and his later films like Monsieur Verdeau and Limelight. Part 4, Struggles, Controversies, and Exile. Chapter 16, Fame and Criticism. By the 1940s, Charlie Chaplin was not only the biggest star in Hollywood, but also one of the most influential voices in the world. Yet, fame is never without enemies. Some people admired him. Others criticized him. They said he was too outspoken, too bold, and too political. Chaplin had always cared about social justice. He spoke about poverty, war, and inequality. But in America, during that time, these ideas were seen as dangerous. Chapter 17, Political Troubles. In the late 1940s, America was entering the era of the Cold War. Anyone who spoke about peace, equality, or workers' rights was quickly accused of being a communist. Chaplin, with his films and his public speeches, became a target. Politicians and newspapers accused him of being un-American. The FBI kept secret files on him. He was questioned about his loyalty to the United States. But Chaplin defended himself. He said, "I am not a communist. I am a humanist. I believe in human rights." Still, the criticism grew stronger. Chapter 18, Personal Scandals. Chaplin's personal life was also filled with difficulties. He married several times, often to much younger women. The press loved to write scandalous stories about his relationships. One of the biggest scandals came in 1943, when an actress accused Chaplin in a paternity case. Though he was cleared by blood tests, the trial damaged his reputation. For a man who had once been loved by millions, this period was painful. Chapter 19, Monsieur Verdot, 1947. Despite the criticism, Chaplin continued to make films. In 1947, he released Monsieur Verdot. This film was very different from his earlier works. Instead of the lovable tramp, Chaplin played a cold-blooded murderer who kills rich women for money. It was a dark comedy, with a message about greed and violence in society. But audiences were shocked. Many people rejected the film. Chaplin explained, "The world is cruel, and sometimes we must hold a mirror to it." Still, the controversy only added to his problems. Chapter 20, Leaving America. In 1952, Chaplin planned to travel to London for the premiere of his new film Limelight. But while he was on the ship, the US government announced that he would not be allowed to return to America. They accused him of being sympathetic to communism. Chaplin was heartbroken. He had lived in America for more than 40 years. It was the country that had made him a star. And now, it had turned its back on him. So Chaplin settled in Switzerland with his family. His life in Hollywood was over. Chapter 21, Limelight, 1952. Before leaving America, Chaplin had finished Limelight. The film was about an old clown, forgotten by the world, who tries to help a young ballerina. Many people believed it was Chaplin's most personal film. It reflected his own feelings. A great artist, once loved by all, now forgotten and criticized. Though it was not successful in America, Limelight became a classic in later years. This period of Chaplin's life was filled with struggles, scandals, and exile. But even in difficulty, he continued to create art. The boy who once made the world laugh was now facing tears of his own. Yet, his story was not finished. In the next part, we will see Chaplin's later years in Switzerland, his return to America for one final honor, and his legacy as one of the greatest artists of all time. Part 5, Later Years, Return, and Legacy. Chapter 22, Life in Switzerland. After being banned from America, Chaplin and his family settled in a beautiful house in Coursier-sur-Vevey, Switzerland. Here, surrounded by the Swiss Alps and quiet countryside, he lived a more private life. Chaplin was now in his 60s. He had a large family, with his last wife, Una O'Neill, the daughter of famous playwright Eugene O'Neill. Together, they had 8 children. Away from the noise of Hollywood, Chaplin finally enjoyed simple joys, walking in the garden, spending time with his children, and writing his memoirs. But he never stopped working completely. Chapter 23, A King in New York, 1957. In 1957, Chaplin made a film called A King in New York. It was a satire about American politics and culture, including television and the fear of communism. The film reflected Chaplin's bitterness about the way America had treated him. But once again, it divided audiences. Some admired it, others criticized it. It was clear, Chaplin's time as the king of the box office was over. But his influence as an artist remained strong. Chapter 24, The Return to America, 1972. For almost 20 years, Chaplin stayed away from America. But in 1972, something remarkable happened. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences decided to honor him with an honorary Oscar for his lifetime achievements. At first, Chaplin was hesitant. Would America welcome him, or reject him again? Finally, he agreed to return. When he arrived at the Oscar ceremony in Los Angeles, he received a 12-minute standing ovation, the longest in Oscar history. The same country that had once banned him now honored him as a legend. Tears rolled down Chaplin's eyes. It was a moment of forgiveness, reconciliation, and glory. Chapter 25, final years. In the 1970s, Chaplin was weak and often ill, but he remained surrounded by love and respect. In 1975, Queen Elizabeth II knighted him, making him Sir Charles Chaplin. He lived quietly in Switzerland with Una and his children, writing, composing music, and reflecting on his extraordinary life. On 25th of December 1977, at the age of 88, Charlie Chaplin passed away in his sleep. The world mourned the loss of a genius, a man who had given laughter to millions. Chapter 26: The Legacy of Charlie Chaplin. Even after his death, Chaplin's influence continues. His films are still watched in every corner of the world. His character, the Tramp, remains a symbol of innocence, resilience, and hope. Young filmmakers continue to learn from his timing, his storytelling, and his ability to mix comedy with deep human emotion. Chaplin once said, "Life is a tragedy when seen in close-up, but a comedy in long shot." And indeed, his own life proved those words true. From a poor boy in London to the most famous man in the world, from hunger to Hollywood, from rejection to everlasting honor, his journey is a masterpiece in itself. And so, dear friends, this was the story of Charlie Chaplin. A man who made the world laugh through his tears. A man whose art continues to inspire, even decades after his passing. Whenever you feel sad, whenever life seems heavy, just remember the little tramp, walking proudly with his cane, ready to fall, ready to rise, and always ready to smile. Because that is Chaplin's true message. Smile, and never give up. Part 6, Filmmaking Secrets and Style. Chapter 27, A Perfectionist on Set. Charlie Chaplin was not only an actor. He was also a director, writer, editor, producer, and even a composer for his films. On set, he was known as the perfectionist. He could spend days, even weeks, shooting a single scene. For example, in the film City Lights, there is a scene where the blind flower girl mistakes the tramp for a rich man. This small moment took over 300 takes before Chaplin was satisfied. Why so many takes? Because for Chaplin, every smile, every pause, every gesture had to be perfect. He believed that even the smallest detail could change the entire feeling of the story. Chapter 28, Comedy with Meaning. Chaplin once said, "Anyone can make them laugh, but to make them laugh and cry at the same time, that is cinema." This was his greatest secret. His comedy was not just about falling down or funny faces. It was about human struggle. A hungry man eating a shoe in the gold rush was both hilarious and heartbreaking. The tramp walking proudly, despite poverty, was both funny and inspiring. He gave comedy a soul. Chapter 29, Universal Language. Another secret of Chaplin's success was his belief in the power of silence. While other filmmakers rushed to add sound, Chaplin continued with silent films. Why? Because he believed that gestures, emotions, and actions were universal. A smile, a tear, or a stumble needed no translation. This is why his films could be enjoyed by people in Japan, India, Africa, Europe, and America, without a single word. Chapter 30, Music and Rhythm. Few people know that Chaplin was also a self-taught musician. He composed the music for many of his films, including the famous song Smile. For him, comedy was like music. Every joke had a rhythm. Every movement had a beat. The tramp's walk itself was like a dance. This sense of timing, like musical notes, made his comedy timeless. Chapter 31, Inspiration from Life. Chaplin's ideas often came from real-life struggles. The hunger in the gold rush came from his own childhood poverty. The blind flower girl in City Lights came from his memory of loneliness. The machines in modern times reflected the industrial world he saw around him. He once said, "To truly laugh, you must be able to take your pain and play with it." That is exactly what he did. He transformed his suffering into stories that gave hope to millions. Chapter 32, Influence on Future Filmmakers. Chaplin's filmmaking style inspired generations. Walt Disney admired him. Raj Kapoor in India modeled many of his characters on Chaplin's Tramp. Modern directors like Richard Attenborough, Roberto Benigni, and even Rowan Atkinson, Mr. Bean, owe something to Chaplin's legacy. His rule was simple: tell your story with honesty, mix it with laughter, and it will live forever. Charlie Chaplin was not just a man in a hat and cane. He was a filmmaker who built an art form. His secrets were perfection, universality, music, and humanity. Through these, he turned silent pictures into everlasting voices. In the next part, we will end our journey with Chaplin's famous quotes and the life lessons we can learn from him today. Part 7: Famous Quotes and Life Lessons. Chapter 33: The Wisdom of Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin was not just a comedian or a filmmaker. He was also a philosopher of life. Through his films and his words, he gave us wisdom that remains true even today. Let us look at some of his most powerful quotes and the lessons we can learn from them. Chapter 34: On Laughter and Pain. Chaplin once said, "To truly laugh, you must be able to take your pain and play with it." This was his secret. Life gave him poverty, hunger, and loneliness. Instead of crying, he turned it into comedy. Lesson: do not let your struggles destroy you. Use them as fuel to create something beautiful. Chapter 35: On Life Itself. He said, "Life is a tragedy when seen in close-up, but a comedy in long shot. When we are in the middle of a problem, it feels tragic. But when we look back after many years, it often feels like a story, sometimes even funny." Lesson: do not judge your life by today's pain. Step back, see the bigger picture, and keep moving forward. Chapter 36: On Humanity. In The Great Dictator, Chaplin spoke these words: "We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery." Even in a world filled with war and division, Chaplin believed in kindness. Lesson: true greatness is not in power or wealth, but in compassion. Chapter 37: On Simplicity. Chaplin once said, "Simplicity is not a simple thing." The Tramp's costume was simple. The jokes were simple. But behind that simplicity was genius. Lesson: do not confuse simplicity with weakness. The deepest truths are often the simplest ones. Chapter 38: On Courage. He reminded us, nothing is permanent in this wicked world, not even our troubles. This is a message of hope. No matter how dark the night, the morning always comes. Lesson: be patient. Keep smiling. Every struggle will pass. Chapter 39: On Love and Happiness. Chaplin said, "You'll never find a rainbow if you're looking down." And also, what do you want meaning for? Life is desire, not meaning. For him, happiness was not about searching for a perfect answer. It was about living, desiring, loving, and dreaming. Lesson: look up, smile, love, create. That is life. Chapter 40: Chaplin's Message to Us. At the end of his life, Chaplin left us not only films, but a philosophy. He taught us that poverty can be turned into laughter, loneliness can be turned into art, pain can be turned into wisdom, and above all, that a single man, with nothing but a cane and a funny walk, can touch the hearts of the entire world. Dear friends, we have traveled through the life of Charlie Chaplin, from his childhood struggles in London, to his rise in Hollywood, to his exile, and finally to his legacy. He made us laugh. He made us cry. But most importantly, he made us believe in hope, love, and humanity. So whenever you feel discouraged, remember Chaplin's words: smile, though your heart is aching. Smile, even though it's breaking. You'll get by. And with that smile, move forward, just like the Tramp, with courage, innocence, and hope.